So that would, and that basically brings us back to option 1. So this is basically just a way to split off that responsibility from the third circle. And in the end, I'm not sure we saw that there was all too much point to doing that. Yeah, that's about that. Then we talked about other things for a while.
Great, thank you very much. We might as well continue going backwards. Who was doing option 4? Are your table ready, Tim? Oh, yeah, turn it on. Yeah, there's a little thing at the top.
Oh, there I go.
There you go.
Karaoke time. Yeah. So we talked about treaty-based and how and if it would work, the advantages, disadvantages. We sort of got sidetracked into talking about coming up with new treaties, reopening treaties, and we sort of kind of quashed that really quick because that's not really what we want to do. We have to include, just remember when you're doing your paperwork, we have to include the Haudenosaunee communities of Six Nations, Akwesasne, Tyendinaga, Oneida, Kahnawake, Kanesatake, and Wata in that list of groupings for treaties. We have Wakwamacom, Treaty 3, Treaty 9. So some of the advantages would be make sure it's a lifetime agreement with increases over time for inflation, for population, etc. Williams Treaty possibly would work, as they are working together currently on various issues. It's mostly geographic based, so that gives a little, even though some of the geographic areas that were discussed are really big, right? When you talk about the number of treaties and the Robinson-Huron, Robinson-Superior treaties. NAN treaty would work, but it does as it does now, but then a lot of work would have to take place within that system for the benefit of the student, because it's sort of kind of top heavy right now, and it just needs to be reworked as to how the money would flow. Each treaty can custom make within their own territory what they need. The financially, well, this came up. The financially stable First Nation would distribute the monies. So the most with they would just, and that got us off topic too. So. We have to remember that the community need must be first and foremost in this whole development of systems. Disadvantages, we talked about Six Nations, they're going to negotiate individually. Possibly Akwesasne might negotiate. The bigger First Nations might want to negotiate these agreements on their own. So funding may not be sufficient. Also look at the ONLFP model and maybe adapt that to this type of model. Pretty much.
Great. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any comments at all related to what's being said? Please feel free to come to the mic and talk about anything that you may, any other understandings you may have about the different options that we're talking about. So option number 3, where's table number 3? Oh, there you go.
Good morning. My table back there, we look kind of small right now. There was a group of 4 of us worked on option 3. And we said regardless of what option was chosen, that there needs to be multi-year agreements and commitments to funding. A lot of the experience at my table was that people didn't know how much was coming in for education, and it caused a big gap in education in terms of running their First Nation schools or hiring teachers. The pros to option 3, First Nations would have control over determining second and third level supports. There'd be admin charges would go to each First Nation, if any. Programs and services would be geared towards First Nations unique needs. Getting specific reports that can be case managed to the individual learner from the second and third level support services. Again, being able to retain teachers as we'd have more money to pay due to the reduction of administration fees from the third level support that is currently flowing through right now. It could create opportunities for our own communities to begin to provide second level support, so like transportation or taking over, different guidance counselor or youth worker positions. For the cons, we said some of it's confusing. It looks like second level support is being paid twice through the First Nations as well as through the third level support. First Nations may not flow the money properly, which could lead to a reduction or cuts in education services that are currently happening. We talked about reporting back to the Treasury Board could also become difficult to be accountable for the money that was received by the First Nation. Trying to chase the second and third level supports for reports or being accountable to the money that was transferred to them, and then having to report that back to the Treasury Board. And then we also said that we don't see this really likely as an option, as Treasury Board probably wouldn't like this arrangement, having to transfer money to 133 different First Nations and then being accountable for the reports coming back. Overall, we said that we need to have a strong finance team in place to be accountable and transparent, and need to have an education board in place for financial and program oversight. Miigwech.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, option 2. Where's 2? Oh, that's back there. They're deciding who's going to report. Are you all going to report together?
Making me pay because I snuck out while they were talking. So this is what they came up with. Option 2, advantages. The funding will meet the needs of the schools and their students. Treaties will operate like a school board that helps small communities. The disadvantages are if the larger communities do not want to support the second level support circles, then smaller communities won't have the supports. Suggestions are the funding formula has to continue to grow based on needs, no caps on funding. Everyone in the treaty has to agree to second level supports. And what about independent communities? How do they fit in is one of the questions. What about
you? Great, thank you very much. So you, just so we know, you looked at it specifically from Treaty 3 perspective, is that right? Yeah, Treaty, yeah, okay, thanks. Option 1, last one.
We talked about many things for option number 1. The first one, we had real difficulty finding out who the third circle would be. And we decided that we wouldn't want the third circle simply replacing INAC and taking the same amount of dollars. The pros of option 1 is receiving the money directly from the Treasury Board. And we thought core funding more so than year-by-year funding. And the First Nations education authorities would get the money. It would be really self-government, and we'd be able to make the decisions which really promote First Nations education. The cons, again, who would take the administrative dollars? And we would need third circle operations and maintenance. And we talked about many other things. It was great discussions, but that's what we came up with.
Great, and I would encourage everyone to please provide your notes if you do have them to Regina and Robin here at, well, the table doesn't have a number anymore, but I think it was table 2. Yep, for sure. We have other tables that are going to report that looked at all of the circles. So who wants to go next? Elizabeth, making her way to the mic. Oh, it's a race.
Well, that's not fair because I don't have a good knee. Okay, we went in many directions. So option 1, we're working with the assumption that the funding is coming directly to the First Nation. One of our comments was we didn't want a third circle support system. We wanted to sort of look at what we have without adding more layers. The reason being we're going to lose funding to admin costs, and we had a discussion about the treaty right to education is held by the students. By option 1's way, the jurisdiction is being moved to the 3rd level. Option 2, from Treasury to community and to 3rd level. We had a discussion. Ron is one of the fortunate ones at our table whose education dollars go directly to education. The council has no access to it. And he has nothing, as a counselor, he has nothing to do with the education funding. They have a manager that does that. The rest of the table, we're basically looking at where they were coming from, and lots of the communities do not see the line between the administration and politics. It all goes into one common pot. Another suggestion is if there was additional resources then to support the 3rd level, does it really matter where it goes through as long as we get more money for what we need? The odds of getting direct funding are very rare. If the 3rd level is not being funded, then it will not report to the community. We will need internally INAC. One of the conversations that came up, which I found interesting, is INAC gets $400 million for social services and education gets $290 million. But if you educated the people, then maybe we wouldn't have the social service issues that we have. That was just a side thought that we had. And then option 3 is where we got stuck. Oh, we didn't know who 3rd level services were, and we were trying to get a name, but we can't get a name of what it is. So we decided we have to get some law. Most of us sat at option 3 and we liked it. The 133 transfer agreements already are in place through INAC, so that shouldn't be an issue. And at our table, why does this issue keep coming up when INAC already has to pay us the money into our First Nations separately? The 2nd and 3rd level that is already happening, lots of organizations, some we do not even know about. We talked about getting money that actually, when you look at the provincial tuition dollars, when you look at the First Nation tuition dollars, that they should be the same or exceed because of situations where everybody is. The nominal role dictates the funding level, and we think that needs to be also looked at because isolated schools have more costs than, say, urban schools. We talked about needs-based, having needs-based come back, because it seemed when we were looking at specific needs of each community, we were able to obtain what funding we required, but as soon as we moved away from that and went to the formula funded, then we lost our ability to provide for what we used to. We talked about our different realities. Each student needs to have their own education system. And then we got on to the topic about, well, if we need special ed, and I said, well, I can do special ed because I'm a cert, but it's not recognized by INAC. And then I was told I just had to put a BSP behind my name, which means Barstool Politics.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is the, yes, your table, you're gonna go next?
Hi, my name is Bernice Kapshusat. I'm with Mushkegowuk Council, and at our table we had a rep from Cut Lake and Onika, Bachuana, Tandanega, and we discussed the 5 options. We had a lot of good discussion, and I'm going to give you some of the topics that we discussed at our table that came to mind when we were looking at all the options. Well, first of all, I'd like to let you know that option 1 and option 2 were not options. Only because that the Treasury Board directly to a 3rd support circle you know, wouldn't really work well. It's almost like, are we replacing one bureaucracy for another kind of thing for that. So some of the discussions we had were about the funding formula. You know, who determines that? I mean, it's not a one-size-fits-all. And we have to think about that geographically. And we need education people within these circles. We don't need politicians. I mean, they do their job, but when we make decisions, we should keep these students in mind at all times, our children. And we need to keep in mind as well, at the forefront is how was our education systems run before money was even an issue. You know, step back and think, how was our education system running within our communities before? Keep local control of local education. All First Nations are unique. Something else. And the option that we came up with is a different one, where Treasury Board directly to the 2nd support circle, and ensure that the Treasury Board cannot arbitrarily cut funding like they did with the councils and the PTOs that they did a couple of years ago now. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much sums it up for our group. So I guess the different option was Treasury Board to the 2nd support circle. And I have a question though about why are we not looking at what the self-government agreements are doing? Why are we looking at all these other options when they already have something that they're doing, and can we not adopt their processes? Have a good day.
Great analysis. Did we miss any of the tables? Okay, does anyone have any final comments or questions about this portion of the discussion circle? Yes? No? You're not.
Just to answer this question from the last person that was speaking about the self-government agreements, we are more than willing to come in and discuss opting in to our agreements. I'm not sure about, I can't speak for NAN, but I know for the Union of Ontario Indians, the door is always open for any First Nation who would like more information and if they would like to participate. And it's in our agreement that we do allow that, even though they're not union First Nation members.
Great, thanks for that, Debbie. And I should have mentioned that right at the outset when we first started this process, we did bring together the governance tables to share with everyone what they were doing. Well, at the first symposium, we did that, right? So we brought them so that they could present and we could understand, and then did the different ones across the country as well. But certainly, the Anishinaabe Nation had put it right out there that if we wanted to adopt the Anishinaabe education system as a province, everyone in Ontario, we would be welcome to do so. Anything else? I know it's the lunch time. Oh, yeah, one more. Oh no, she's heading. Okay, well let's break for lunch then, and we'll come back at